Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Eric Diamond. Some of you may know me from my previous role at ECDI, Executive Vice President of Lending. I recently left and formed a company called Westport Capital, and we're focused on creating equitable ecosystems for entrepreneurship in Cleveland. I want to welcome you to our second annual event for Sea Change. Sea Change was a kind of the brainchild of Bill Lehman at the Business of Good Foundation probably 2.5 years ago. And we got together a group of passionate individuals that were interested in social entrepreneurship. At the time, a lot of us were interested and had no idea what it meant. But we got together, and anybody in the community that had an interest or had a desire to work with social entrepreneurs had a seat at the table. And so that group was Launch House at the time, ECDI, Idea Stream, Cleveland Foundation, Jumpstart, Gun Foundation. So everybody had kind of come, and we created a curriculum, put our first cohort through last year, awarded about $60,000 in funding. This past year, we started in July, and we had two all-day seminars where we made a call to the community. If you have a social enterprise idea, come and let's talk. And we had over 150 people show up to those 2-day events. We had 50 people apply to be part of the accelerator. We whittled that down to about 12, and 4 ended up completing the program. We're going to hear from 3 of them this evening. So it's been quite the 8 months. I'd like to first thank the Business of Good Foundation, the Gun Foundation, Burton D. Morgan Foundation. They are the ones who put together the funding for this event. And I'd like to welcome some of our guests, the Fund for the Economic Future. Burton D. Morgan is here, as well as ECDI. And we are going to have a great evening. The space that we are in tonight is kind of the epitome of social enterprise. Bloom Bakery was just opened about 6-7 months ago, I guess it is now. And I would like to introduce Logan Fahey of Bloom Bakery to talk about it.
Thank you. Well, welcome to Bloom. It's been a couple months now, but we've been working on the project for about 1.5 years. So I thank you to Bill for inviting me, and thank you for hosting it here at Bloom. I want to go back a couple years when I first got involved in social enterprise and really found the passion for the industry. So I was working for Prudential Financial in Massillon, Ohio, and I was selling financial products right out of high school. And a friend of mine invited me to volunteer at a local youth prison. And I thought the request was really odd. I didn't realize a lot of people went into prisons. I didn't understand reentry at the time. And I decided to go with him. I had actually had a couple friends as a child who I grew up with who had run into law and actually had been incarcerated. And so I had some compassion in me for it and really wanted to just try it out. And so I went that night to the youth prison in Massillon. And there was a program going on to talk with youth about job readiness and career readiness. And really fell in love with what these volunteers were doing with youth to get them jobs. And one of the youth at the end of the event came up to me and wanted to share a little bit about his story. And his story was really heartbreaking, but he had been inspired by a mentor who had come into the prison and volunteered with him on day one. And it just spoke to me incredibly what this one mentor could do for this individual. And the most impactful piece was that this mentor was able to get him a job when he was released. So he was getting released 2 weeks later. And I really wanted to follow with this story with this mentor and with this youth. And so even though I was still working at Prudential, I got heavily involved with a ministry called True North. And this ministry worked with youth in all sorts of different youth incarceration systems with the state of Ohio. And really started heavily getting involved in volunteering and working with youth one-on-one, and really fell in love with the mission of it. And so I decided to leave Prudential and go work for this ministry who did this work solely. And the one thing I thought is what can we do to get people employed? What can we do to get these youth who are coming out of incarceration employed? And so we thought about this idea of creating a landscape company that would employ youth coming out of incarceration. And that was my first exposure to social enterprise. This was before I knew what the word social enterprise meant. Didn't even know there was a segment of the population that was working on this. And so we created the landscape company with the sole purpose of hiring these youth, and really found that giving youth a job out of incarceration was a life-changing experience. For them, it was an opportunity to earn some income, but more importantly, it was someone who really believed in them for the first time. It was an opportunity for them to get a mentor, get someone in the industry who says, I'm willing to give you a chance, but I'm willing to back you, I'm willing to understand what you're going through and help support you through this. And so that was really my first exposure to social enterprise. And after that, I had the great opportunity to work for a foundation in Aurora, which Ray Dalton with PartSource and the Dalton Foundation had really wanted to focus on social enterprise. And he wanted someone who really was willing to do the research and really get heavily involved in the industry and see what it was all about. And so I spent about a year and a half working with him, doing a lot of research on social enterprise, getting heavily involved in that industry. And I ended up meeting a nonprofit called Towards Employment in the process. And I met with Jill Rizica, who's the executive director of Towards Employment. And first meeting with her, I was blown away by all that they were doing. We had no idea. If you're not in the reentry space or you're not in the nonprofit space, you a lot of times don't know what the local nonprofits are doing in these different areas, and especially in the area of reentry. And the first day I was there, I attended a graduation with Towards Employment's graduates and was blown away by how excited and the opportunities that were presented to them by going through this program and ultimately getting jobs. And so I had started working with Towards Employment, and we started talking about this idea to create a social enterprise. It had been something on Towards Employment's board's mind for a while. They had looked at different businesses, some in Columbus and so forth. And I really felt a calling to go over to Towards Employment and work with them further on a social enterprise. So Jill gave me the opportunity to come over to Towards Employment about a year and a half ago now with the sole purpose of creating a social enterprise for the agency. So for those of you who don't know what Towards Employment is, they're a 40-year-old workforce development agency that works with individuals across the board, from those who have barriers to employment such as a criminal record, underneath the poverty line, have been unemployed for a long period of time, and they work with them through a career readiness program and a bunch of different avenues, supportive services like legal support and so forth. And so I came on board, and really the sole goal was, what can we do, what business can we find that will employ their graduates, provide advocacy and awareness to the agency, and hopefully create profit at some point. And so we looked at businesses across the board. We looked at manufacturing, we looked at technology. We ultimately started looking at the food service industry and said, this could be a great fit for our graduates. It could be a great opportunity. Maybe there's a market need. And when we looked at how to create a social enterprise and what was the most effective way of doing this, we said we really wanted to focus on a market need. Where is the need and how can we fill it first? And if we can fill a market need successfully, then we can employ as many graduates as we want. And so we looked at downtown Cleveland. Towards Employment's located at Playhouse Square, and we said, what is downtown Cleveland missing? And in talking with the city of Cleveland and some economic development folks, we found that there was no real artisan bakery, similar to On the Rise in Cleveland Heights or Blackbird in Lakewood. And so we embarked on this. Well, is a bakery a good fit for us? Will this create the industry that we wanted to create for our graduates? Will this do what we wanted to do? And we found that it did. And so the next part was, what did we know about baking? And the answer was absolutely nothing. None of us had been in the food industry before. I was not in retail previously, and Towards Employment had never done a business before. And so we really wanted to find the best in the industry to help us create this business. And so we found a gentleman named Maurice Chaplet, who's based in England, who's created about a dozen bakeries around the world. His sole focus is creating the bakery. And so he does breads, pastries, a bunch of different lunch options, everything that you see at our bakery today. And we brought Maurice to Cleveland in March of 2015 and showed him the city of Cleveland and said, do you think this is a viable market for this? Do you think that you can create something here? And he pitched us kind of what he felt would be a good vision for creating this bakery and what it would look like, what would the product offering look like, and what type of revenues could we do, and most importantly, what type of training would our employees have to go through? How intensive would it be? Could the graduates of Towards Employment really gain something from this experience? And I can tell you that we were blown away by his enthusiasm and his commitment to the industry. And so we embarked on a journey of working with Maurice. And we're now about a year and a half later, and I am unbelievably impressed with what this gentleman has done to help us create Bloom and his commitment. So I'm on a video conference with Maurice every other day. He's calling me constantly to check up on the bakery. He's in India right now, but still just as committed. So he came back in February of this year to help create the concept for Bloom. And so we have two locations. You're standing in our Public Square location. We have a CSU location, which also houses the main bakery. And so Maurice came here and trained our bakers from scratch. And I'm amazed to see the graduates of Towards Employment, we're up to 12, who've went through and from day one had no experience in retail, had no experience in baking. But Maurice took them over a 3-month period from nothing to amazement. When you see the product level that we're producing now and the product level we were producing at day one, it is the same. We always knew that on day one we'd create a great product. Maurice was here, he had done it a million times. But the real question is in 3 months when Maurice leaves, will our employees be able to keep up that product level? And with the help of an experienced head baker, Saida, and a great team, we've done it. And it's been incredibly successful so far, and we hope to continue that. So when we think about social enterprise for what it did towards employment, and we think about what it did for Bloom, it's really creating opportunities for individuals who otherwise wouldn't have had that opportunity. It's the sole purpose of creating it. And so we work with our graduates for about a year in the program, and they gain some sort of work experience, whether it's in the retail side or the bakery side. And during that time, they'll work with Saida Farrell, the head baker, or they'll work with retail staff and really start to gain some of that in-depth experience, work experience, and then hopefully move on to great jobs and great futures ahead. But for me, it was really about, I had been given so many great opportunities from the beginning. True North believed in me from the start to create a company when I had no business experience. The Dalton Foundation believed in me to create social enterprises for nonprofits and work in that industry. And ultimately, Towards Employment and Jill believed in me to create the social venture for Bloom. And that same opportunity is what we achieve and we want to give to our graduates every day. Someone needs to believe in them, someone wants to give them that hands up, wants to allow them to believe in themselves, but also help raise a business. And from day one, this was a new business for everyone. But our employees, every one of them has helped create what is Bloom today. From working 1 a.m. midnight shifts, working 60-hour work weeks, the commitment level is amazing. So I want to congratulate all the entrepreneurs that are here today, my fellow social entrepreneurs who are embarking on this journey. I know it'll be one that is unbelievably rewarding, and I wish everyone much success. And I want to thank everyone here who supported this so far. Bloom wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the support of foundations like the Business of Good, organizations like ECDI. So thank you so much for your support, and thank you for visiting Bloom.
Thank you, Logan. That is an amazing story, and just kind of the power of social entrepreneurs in Cleveland. Speaking of the power of social entrepreneurs, I want to introduce our next guest, which is Mansfield Frazier. Mansfield was in our first cohort of social enterprises last year, and was one of the recipients of our first cohort of money. So, Mansfield.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. That lovely face belongs to Majora Carter. She's an environmental activist from the Bronx, New York, who said one amazing thing: you shouldn't have to move to live in a better neighborhood. Think about that. What we've been doing in America is trucking bell peppers from California on a, in our case, 2,800-mile ride. They get a 3-day trip. Each day they get more stale, bringing them to Cleveland. And okay, be that way. It's one of my things are gone. But there are people who are doing this locally. Those are 5 examples of farms. Riddall are very good friends of mine. They raise fish. Eric Hooper at Hooper Farms has been there for years. Maggie's farm has been on the west side for years. And the bottom examples, that's the farm over by the west side market in the lower left-hand side. And the lower right-hand side, that's Evergreen's farm. So we can grow crops here in Cleveland. Reimagining Cleveland was a project that started in 2010 on how to reimagine Cleveland as a green city on a blue lake. And we applied to put in a vineyard. And they said, what do you know about grapes and wine? And I took exception. I said, hey, I'm an expert at taking the cork out the bottle. That's about all I know. Some people put in raised bed gardens, others put in pocket parks, some put in orchards. We took that lot. That one of the reasons, very convenient, that's from my side of the street. I live right, the house you can't see. That lot was sitting diagonally across the street from me. I said, boy, that would make a good something, and it's easy commute for me. That was my first team. You know, when you see the visions of the West Side Market, the farm over there, they had these Amish and bring in these teams of horses. That was my team. My neighbor she saw me out there working by myself. She said, look, I'm too old to work. I'll pay these guys to help you. And so she was actually paying them. But like kids, they would work for about 2 minutes and then go back to playing. Typical kids. Until I put that, I had them picking up stones in the vineyard. We just turned the soil over. So I told them, pick up stones, put them over here. They'd work too. I put that X on the wall and asked, who can hit that X with a stone? Within an hour, all of the stones were right under the X. So I learned something about letting people do what they're good at. But before long, we started having volunteers from all over the county, a lot of people from Case, all over, that bought into what we were doing. We had some days we had more help than what we needed. But this really is a reentry project. The guys, the two on the left, were in a halfway house, Oriana House, which is on 55th Street. So we invite guys from the halfway house to come in and volunteer at our vineyard, and then if they do well, then we hire them. We hire them on a part-time basis, a transitional basis, but what we're trying to do is dispel the notion that they'll never be able to get a job. We tell them right off the bat, you can get a job, we'll hire you. Then we move them on. We've had 50 guys so far, about 23 or 24 are doing good. A lot of them are truck drivers. What we do is stabilize them, help them get their driver's license back, get them into truck driving school, and they're making 27, 28 bucks an hour. Some work in the restaurant industry. Some work in construction. I don't know why I put this one in here, except that to show that there's a real interest in prison reentry. It's a hot topic. Well, actually, it was a hot topic about a decade ago, but in America, we have a short attention span. We do like this. And reentry is starting to go down the hill, believe me. We've peaked out. If we don't get it solved now, we're not going to get it solved because we move on to the next big thing. That's how Americans are. We built the Vineyards of Chateau Huff in 2010, and it's been a raging success. That's how it looks from the window of a house that stood next door. That was 3 years ago. Those are some of our pickers. Every year we have a bunch of people. That guy's perfect height for picking grapes, I'm telling you. I'm having him back next year. That's his grandmother beside him. And he had a great time. We got into Oprah's O magazine. Oprah liked us. Who's that handsome guy over there on the right? Oh, only problem with the Oprah thing, you know, after I was in the magazine, she kept calling me, you know. But in our first year that we made wine, we won a second place ribbon at the Geauga County Fair in competition against 120 other wines. So we've proven that you can make good wine in Huff. I used to wear the ribbon around my neck. My wife made me quit wearing it to events, so I just wear it at home now. That building, you see, that's the end of our vineyard. That building sat right beside our vineyard, and Jean Loria, environmental biologist, came with Terry Schwartz to see the vineyard, and she said, boy, that would make a great biocellar. And I said, wow, what's a biocellar? So what we did, we tore the house down. These are guys that would be doing other things if they weren't working for us. They work for us on contracts. They now build hoop houses. And believe me, they work, because I make sure they do. Only person standing around is me. We took that building and turned it into that. That's the world's first biocellar. We used the basement to grow crops. We put a greenhouse roof over the top of it. And it's been spectacular. We grow crops all year round because the ambient temperature, the frost line in Northeast Ohio is 4 feet, meaning below 4 feet, nothing freezes. There's Marvin, my main worker, and that's my main success story. He's in the biocellar. Marvin was the terror of the neighborhood 5 years ago when we first started this. And it took some doing, took me firing him 3 times, but he finally got it right. And that's what we do. You can't renew cities without renewing the people who reside in them, without renewing the population. It can't be done. You'll have a whole lot of nice buildings, but you must do something to help the people that reside in them. That's our 5-year plan. That was in 2012. And you see the biocellar, and above it is where we want to place our winery. What we want to do, and the bank gave us that house for $1. Beautiful house, built in 1879. It's built so well, you can put a marble on the floor, it won't roll. You can walk up the steps, they don't creak. My window expert said, this thing don't need any windows. From 1879, it was built so well, the windows are still tight. We're going to take that and turn it into a facility where we house guys coming out of incarceration, because what we found, if young men go back to the neighborhoods where they came from, they tend to fall through the cracks. So we need to do more than give them a paycheck. We need to have them, well, under our thumb, to be honest. We need to know where they're at almost every hour of the day. Then that way we can get better successes. And this is the building that sits immediately west of the winery, of the vineyard, that we want to take and turn into our winery. That's our next big project. We're 501c3. We make wine, but we can't sell it because we don't have a license. We don't have a license because we don't have a winery. We won't be. So what we do, people donate to our nonprofit, and we gift them with bottles of wine. And the state said, we'll let you get away with that, Frazier, for about another year, and you have to stop it because it's borderline. It's not illegal, but they're not fond of us doing it. But we're trying to raise funds to turn that into our winery. That's what it would look like. That's the artist's rendering of what it would look like when it's finished. But that's about a $1.8 million project. So what we've just decided, we're going to take that biocellar I showed you and probably convert it to our first winery, because we can do it at a lower cost. And then the profits from the winery, we will take and build this one once we show people that we can sell wine. And believe me, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Heinen's locally, everybody's waiting on our wine because we're a social enterprise. If there's a bottle of wine here and another bottle of wine there, and if you're buying this bottle from us and it's helping somebody, it's social enterprise, we think we'll sell a lot of wine. In fact, and our wine, we won awards with it, so we know it'll work. We're also going to get into hops, and hops grow 20 feet high. The reason we want to do hops is because it's a job creator. We do not want to become beer manufacturers. We don't want to become craft brewers. But we're basically farmers. We make wine, but we're farmers. That is the next growth industry. There's a worldwide shortage of hops because so many craft breweries, I mean, you can't sling a dead cat in Cleveland without hitting a craft brewery just about. But what they've done is that they've dried up the market for hops. Hops are being imported from all over the world, from Bavaria. There's just not enough hops to supply the demand. So that's our next project. I've been working on that this week and last week to try to put in hops. That's our, and we'd like to put them along the Opportunity Corridor. They're going to clear that area out. They said they're going to bring in businesses, and if they bring in a business, we'll give you the land back. But when the land is just sitting there, we'd like to use it to put hops in. That's our story. Now, I was supposed to talk about what's happened. Yes. Nothing. Since we've been a part of Sea Change, we got a beautiful business plan, and nothing has happened with it. And I was at an event about a month and a half ago, I think, at Jumpstart with the people from REI, Racial Equity Institute, and what they basically said, and I hope you guys take this the right way, people give to people who look like them. I don't look like the people who have the money. So we have trouble getting funding, and we know it. So some people say, well, maybe you're doing something wrong. I said, well, tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'll correct it. I'm kind of bright. I'll correct it from doing wrong. No, it's just that, Helen Keller once said, philanthropy is a tragic apology for wrong conditions. Never lose sight of that. But it's also very true that in America, we need to have the philanthropic community start rethinking who they fund and take a chance. I will say we're expert at one thing. We're expert at taking this young man out of prison and turning his lives around. We're pretty good farmers and grape growers and pretty good winemakers. The thing we're real good at is changing lives, and we know that. We deserve your support. I will be meeting with some of you on an individual basis coming up. They know who they are, and I'm twisting arms. I've met with some already, and we need support. We think that this can work. We need 25 more vineyards in the city of Cleveland. We need 100 hops yards, and we can sell all of the products we grow. So that would put a lot of young people to work if we can get the funding. The problem, of course, is a vineyard takes $20,000 to establish, and you got to wait 3 years before you get a dime. Same things with hops. So it's very front-loaded, and our nonprofit just don't have that kind of money. So we have to go around and rattle that tin cup. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mansfield. I don't know about you, but after hearing stories like that, it's just, it kind of gives you chills, and we're very proud to have him be part of our first cohort. And, Mansfield brings up a great point. I mean, part of the whole mission of Sea Change is to think about entrepreneurship differently. I've said it before, entrepreneurship is not just white kids in hoodies that, do tech. It's all different types of things. And things like social enterprise, not only does it do good, but these people hopefully become sustainable and employ more individuals. We're going to have another story. Dan Brown from Rust Belt Riders was in our first cohort last year, and he's an amazing young man who will tell you that he quit his job to become a garbage man. So, interesting story. Good seeing you, man.
Sorry for giving you a hard time. Cool. So my name's Dan Brown. I'm the co-founder of a company called Rust Belt Riders. We basically offer an alternative to landfills for companies in Northeast Ohio by offering them a logistics-based solution that's clean, timely, and benefits their communities. The reason we do this is because food waste is one of the largest things that goes to our landfills. Roughly 40% of all the food that's grown in this country is just thrown away. This represents about $186 billion in economic loss every year just in the United States. So to put those numbers sort of in perspective, we could fill our beloved Cleveland Browns Stadium every day with the amount of food waste that's produced in this country. So the problem is enormous, and our solution is just skimming the surface, but we've made a lot of headway in the past year. And so you might wonder, like, where is this waste being generated? Who are these awful people that are just throwing away all this food? And the answer is it's really all of us. Roughly 25% of the food loss occurs at the consumer level, and then a majority happening at retail level. And so the service that we offer, we try and target consumer-facing businesses. So historically, we've worked with cafes, restaurants, and are moving towards grocery stores and larger producers. Because from a logistics standpoint, it's a lot easier to go to one or two businesses than hundreds and hundreds of doors and residents. So the way we offer this service is we offer containers. They're clearly labeled. We provide education to anybody who's handling food at that facility and let them know how that food is going to be better utilized and ensure that it's not going to a landfill. So we partner with two different organizations in town right now. One is Rid All Green Partnership, which is at East 83rd and Kinsman, and the other is Kurtz Brothers, which is in Independence. And so they have these highly coveted EPA permits that allow them to compost on a large scale, which is something that we need to do because every week we're now moving about 10,000 pounds of food waste. And so this is sort of our number of clients over time. So when we started, we were doing everything on bicycles, which we learned to be absolutely ridiculous. And so you see sort of where things start taking off, and that was after we received funding through Sea Change about this time last year. Since then, we've doubled or tripled the number of clients that we've taken on and just crossed the 50 client threshold, which is very exciting and equally challenging. But yeah, so when we started, our ambitions were, I guess, not big enough to meet the challenges. We thought we would remain neighborhood-based and work with community gardens. And all of a sudden, the 15 community gardens that we were working with and bringing food waste to got inundated with the amount of waste that we were collecting. We were riding hundreds and hundreds of miles on bikes and not not at all being compensated for our time. So we made a thoughtful and strategic transition to move towards vehicles. This allows us to offer our services to those who are generating the bulk of the food waste in our region, and offer a service that can be competitive to traditional waste management practices. And in addition to that, we were able to offer our services to a wider geographical range as well. So now we have clients out in Rocky River, we've got clients in Pepper Pike, and trying to ride your bike there with a little trailer just didn't make a lot of sense. So we continue to serve these restaurants and cafes, and you know and love probably all of their products. And so that's sort of been our focus over the past year. But moving forward, we're targeting sort of a county-wide approach to offer our services to hospitals, grocery stores, and institutions, because that's where the bulk of the food waste is being generated. So hospitals, on average, are putting out 175 tons of food waste per month. Universities, 12 tons per month, and grocery stores, 650 tons per month. So within just Cuyahoga County, you're looking at a $2 million industry that is currently not being served by anyone. So we're trying to step into that gap. We're happy to share with you all that we have letters of intent or early commitment from all 18 Heinens, Case Western, which should be starting next month. University Hospitals wants to do 3 of their hospitals start a pilot program with us to see what this would look like network-wide, and then the General Services Administration. And the interesting thing about the General Services Administration is that the federal government now recognizes food waste as a crisis. And so they've developed a strategy that by 2030, all federal buildings will have a strategy to manage food waste. And they're incentivizing state governments to take similar actions and are providing funding for it as well. And so this poses a tremendous opportunity for us. We'll have roughly 30% market capture just with the letters of intent that we have on hand. But it's roughly 2,000% growth, which is kind of mind-boggling. And so, so we've assembled an advisory board to sort of help us think about how we're going to scale and reach market potential without pulling our hair out and going crazy. So this crazy flow chart here is sort of like all of the ways food waste can be managed. And so right now, you know, you can throw it down in the landfill, or you could have on-site processing. I don't know how many of you want to have a compost facility at your place of business. Some do, but others work with small community haulers, which is probably what we were doing about a year ago. But we're trying to position ourselves, it didn't line up, to be a municipal or private hauler, which basically provides feedstock to animal feed, centralized composting, and AD, which is a form of electricity production. So anaerobic digesters are basically big stomachs that produce a byproduct in the form of methane, which then powers a turbine. So we're trying to think of ourselves more broadly than just composting. We'll continue to compost, but I think that the opportunity to use the food waste that we're collecting and feed animals with it cuts a whole portion of the feed chain out. And if we're able to provide electricity for our community, that's another added value add, but also expands the carrying capacity of the region to take on the sheer magnitude of waste that's being generated here. And then ultimately, we're looking at additional revenue. Right now, we're only generating revenue through the collections of our services. The goal is to become vertically integrated, or as we're sort of toying around with the idea of circularly integrated, to essentially be able to control, process, and sell all the food waste that we're collecting to grow more food, to feed more animals, and basically support our community holistically and without fail nonstop, because the food waste, as we found, does not stop. And so this is our team. We're doing all of this with 3 people. And so we're going to be scaling up and hopefully adding a few more employees over the next couple months. Michael, the burly man in the middle, is the co-founder with me. He's been heading up logistics and route management, which is really where our margins are. So when fuel prices go up, we need to ensure that our routes get that much more dense. And Jesse studies sustainability at Roosevelt University, and so he's helping us think about how we could track everything that we're doing and provide that information back to our clients for those who want to do sustainability reporting or global reporting initiative. And these are really value-added things that our clients are seeking from us. And so a couple interesting developments that we've found is that we recently started working with Philips and with Rosetta, which is a company just a few blocks away. And they're owned by companies outside of the United States who have a bit more enlightened policies around how you manage food waste. And so they are, by order from their parent companies, now obligated to manage their food waste. And so we're seeing a lot of foreign held companies approaching us now in order to remain compliant with their efforts. And I think that it's not a far gone conclusion to suspect that similar legislation will find its way to Ohio before too long. The state of Massachusetts, Vermont, Rhode Island, California, and the state of Washington all have similar bans or regulations around how food waste is managed. And I think it's only a matter of time until similar legislation finds its way here. And so, like I said, we've assembled an advisory board. We've got a pretty top-notch advisory board. We've got people in real estate, people in government relations. Font's very small. So people both at the county and at the city, people offering financial advice and legal advice. A lot of what we're doing, there's not really much of a playbook to play from. And so we're making up the rules as we go and learning from companies across the country. And so we're trying to position ourselves at the intersection of public partnerships, what governments can't do or are incapable of doing, what business traditionally does by creating jobs and wealth, and what nonprofits are trying to do through advocacy and creating awareness around social issues. And so we're centered squarely there. The companies that you'll hear from later today are also, and we're really excited to be part of a growing movement and network of people trying to use business to address social causes for the betterment of all of us, hopefully. So that's my update. Yeah.
So much, buddy. It has been amazing to see the growth of Rust Belt Riders from when they entered the program 2 years ago to now. And that is what we were hoping to do and see. And we are just so proud of Dan. We are going to take a few-minute break while we mic up our people for this evening. All right. We got to meet some of our wonderful contestants from last year, and these individuals tonight will be pitching us, much like the individuals that did previously, and we are so excited. So the first is Ilana from Milestone Autism Research, and take it away. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Okay, they told me to press it and it will turn green. Is that okay? Hi, I'm Ilana Hofferscoff. I'm here tonight with Mia Buckwell-Gellis, and we co-founded Milestone's Autism Resources in 2003. We started the organization to help improve the lives of individuals with autism. We're here today because we're looking for an investment of $60,000 so that we can deepen the impact of those with autism in Northeast Ohio and to help us sustain our earned income. We started the organization because we are parents of children with autism. It's a spectrum in that individuals are impacted to varying degrees, but they all share challenges with behavior, communication, and social interaction. Let me give you a visual example of the difficulty that individuals with autism face in terms of interpreting social cues. This is a picture of my family. My two children are very close in age, and yet my son is understanding the social cues and my daughter is looking away disengaged. And she didn't understand what was taking place. After a lot of research and effort, we were able to find behavioral strategies that were effective to help her learn to interact with her brother, and you see they have a nice relationship today. My daughter is one of 45,000 individuals diagnosed with autism in Northeast Ohio. That's the 7-county area. Along this journey, we found that educating her was definitely important, but that wasn't enough. We also had to educate ourselves as family members. We had to educate fellow therapists, doctors who would be working with her. And that whole circle of community that helps that individual reach their potential. Well, when Mia and I got together, we were looking for an organization that was dedicated to education for the entire autism community, and we couldn't find it. And that's why we started Milestones. And today, in fact, not only is Milestones the only organization of its kind in Northeast Ohio, it's the only organization of its kind within the state. We, over the last 14 years, have developed an organization, built a board of directors, working with leading partners in the community, all committed to this mission of improving the lives of individuals with autism. We've put together a full-time staff. Mia and I brought our expertise and background in nonprofit management and development to start the organization, but we've added people with expertise in social work, education, and behavioral strategies. The way people interact with our organization is through these core programs, and one builds upon the next. Let me share with you people's experience through the experience of one of our clients. Carla has a son, Daniel. When he was 2 years old, she was given the diagnosis of autism. And then what did she do? She went online and Googled Autism Cleveland and came to the Milestones website. And this is what she found. Over 1,000 resources, information about social groups, about educational schools, specifically for those with autism. When she wanted to learn more, as many people do on this journey, she came to the Milestones Autism Conference, where she met up with 1,000 other people coming together to learn. But even more importantly, she was able to come with her husband, Mo, and with her mother, and together they learned as a family, and they learned effective strategies that had been proven to work with individuals with autism. As Milestones became a trusted resource for her and her family, she came and asked for coaching, and we worked with her individually and worked to develop things that were important to her family. They wanted to learn social skills so that her family could interact together, so that her son and his brother could interact. We work with individuals at all ages, stages, and abilities. The major problem for an adult with autism is the difficulty in finding employment. 70% of adults with autism are unemployed. That means that 7 out of 10 adults are without a job. They are a burden on themselves, on their family, and on the community. On average, it costs about $2 million to educate and support an adult throughout their lifetime with autism. In the Northeast Ohio area, that totals over $90 billion. Autism is here as a resource for families who are struggling with this challenge. I want to share with you an example of one of our clients, Nate. Nate started working with us when he was 17 years old. He has a fear of children, of the unpredictability of children, to the point where he hits children. This was a great dilemma for his school. He was at a very reputable autism school. They worked with him and helped him to manage that fear. However, they could not find a job for him. So they came to Milestones because they were stuck. The family was stuck, the school team was stuck. And so the way Milestones worked with him was to develop a personalized plan to help him reach his goal of employment. We offered him and held an internship for him at Milestones. And by the way, when he came to Milestones, he came with 2 job coaches, 2 football-sized player job coaches, because of the fear that he would attack other staff. But during the internship, we worked with him, developed strategies that would be specific to him to help him build confidence measures, and he became a productive employee. And by the end of his internship, he was able to come independently into the office and was very productive. Then we knew we could engage him in the community, we could find work assessments for him in the community, and today he has a full-time job with Natural Essentials. He's recognized for his productivity, he's a star employee. The ingredient of Milestones into his plan and into his team changed the trajectory for him. It changed for him, for his family, and also for the school, so that they could realize that individuals who are severely impacted with autism can give back, can have a job, can contribute. This is so important, and this is where we want to grow, and this is why we're here. Because we want the investment to help us increase our impact to help other people like Nate. We feel that we're a good investment for you. I want to share with you why and share our history. This is our history of growth. We started in 2003 with a grant of $2,500, and we leveraged that into $22,500. I'll tell you how. We had a conference, and we had 400 people show up the first year. We recognized that we had a valuable commodity, we had something that was of value to the community, and they were going to support it. And you see that through our growth as we hired staff, that philanthropy, that purple-blue line, continued to grow so that 75% of our income comes from philanthropy. We are recognized as a community resource and important to those within the autism community and beyond. We're here today because in the next few years through 2020, we would like to double our impact. We want to do it in a way that's going to sustain the organization through diversified funding, through some new unique funding streams that we haven't been doing, increasing our consultations, monetizing our online income. And we want to use that and invest it back into the organization so that we can reach and help more people. Our investment, if it comes from you, the investment is a one-time gift of $60,000, but that will be translated into $300,000 of annual recurring income. This is just within a couple of years. And what's great about this is the investment will be in business development, digital marketing, and customized content so that each one of our services is customized, and as people enter from one, they go to the next. And they deepen their interaction with milestones. They receive a better outcome for the individual and for the family, and by paying for services, they're sustaining the organization. Take a look at our numbers. Right now, we're at 50,000 unique website visitors. Through the investment, we'll be able to double that. We'll also start monetizing the online resources. Our conference attendees will be growing as well and doubling. With greater registrations, more exhibitors and sponsors will be interested in a larger conference. And one of our most exciting ventures, as I've described, is our consultations. We start with a pilot project we've had this past year of working with 25 families and agencies. To grow that to 400 would create a great impact in terms of that individual, that family, and society. We're here today because it's so important to us to improve people's lives. With your investment, you will help us sustain the organization. And as partners, we'll be working together to create a great impact on society, where individuals with autism are given the opportunity to give back, to share their strengths, and as a community, we'll all be enriched. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you so much.
Nice job, Elena. You know, it's so cool because I get to see these guys come in, and then the final project. I was just blown away. It was amazing. Up next is Evan from Peaceful Fruits.
Thanks, Eric.
Good luck.
Possibly. There we go. All right, my name is Evan Delahanty, and I am the founder of Peaceful Fruits. And Peaceful Fruits makes a simple, delicious fruit snack that is good for you and good for the world. And what I'm here to talk about today is the impact that we're having already and how much more we can do with the support of organizations like Sea Change, some of the organizations here in the room, individuals like you, and of course, an investment of $60,000. So what are these super snacks that I'm talking about? Well, it starts with how we employ folks with disabilities right here in Northeast Ohio already today, creating full wage jobs. And then it continues in the Amazon rainforest where we source the acai that's the main ingredient in our snacks and where I was a Peace Corps volunteer. So these super snacks that are doing all of that, they are pretty super, but they're not that traditional fruit roll-up that you might be thinking of, where the first ingredient was corn syrup and then the second ingredient, also corn syrup. We managed to make a fruit snack actually just out of whole organic fruit. It took 6 months of intense research with the Cornell University Food Lab and the Cleveland Culinary Launch Kitchen, not too far away. But it turns out you can make FDA-compliant, shelf-stable, delicious food just out of food. It's not that hard. And that's, of course, going after that growing segment of customers that increasingly care about what their food means to their bodies and also their community around them. These are people that want food made the right way from the right stuff. And that's what we do. So for us, for Peaceful Fruits, Made the Right Way starts right here in Northeast Ohio, working with folks like AJ. Now, AJ has Down syndrome, and he was actually the very first person to join our mission. We work with him through our partnerships with Hattie Larlam and Blick Clinic to create as a full wage jobs program, employing him and other folks like him to produce our snacks. And that's so critical because as you see in our community, we've already heard a little bit about similar issues, but in our community, in the United States, people with disabilities are more than twice as likely to experience lasting poverty in their lifetime. a household that includes a person with disabilities has an annual income 40% lower than average. So there's an incredible need for full wage jobs for these folks, and we're incredibly proud to say that just since August, when we launched that partnership, we've already created 10 jobs right there in Akron. And that theory of made the right way from the right stuff, that permeates throughout the company and the product itself, including with the main ingredient, which is the superfood acai. Now, acai became famous because it's a delicious, nutritious fruit from the Amazon rainforest, and in particular, it's known as one of the best sources of antioxidants, which have been linked to cancer prevention and anti-aging. So it's no surprise that it's one of the most popular superfoods in the world. But what makes acai particular super, in my mind, is the positive impact it can have for the people of the Amazon rainforest where it grows. I founded Peaceful Fruits after 2 years in the Amazon as a project manager and community economic development specialist with the United States Peace Corps. And that's where I worked with folks like EDWA, who subsist on less than a few dollars per day. And usually that's enough to scrape by. But if someone gets sick or if EDWA wants to send his kids to school, he faces hard choices for how he's going to generate the money necessary to do that. And unfortunately, the main option right now is to join a poisonous illegal strip mine like shown here, where they're prospecting for gold and destroying the environment for miles around. What Peaceful Fruits does, we offer folks like EDWA a better option. We partner with them to harvest the acai that grows wild and abundant on their lands naturally. So we're offering them a way to generate some income without having to abandon their way of life or disrupt the environment. It's a way to access some of the benefits of the modern economy without being co-opted by it. It's a premium product that's actually self-limiting to a degree because it only commands a premium as long as it's wild. And what we're trying to do there, what the core of Peaceful Fruits is trying to align environmental sustainability, economic empowerment, together with the profit motive. Because if you can make doing the right thing profitable, it's a lot easier to sign people up, right? And that's what Peaceful Fruits is all about. We're a for-profit company, but it's designed to be for-profit for folks at every link in the chain. And that speaks back to my background, where I was an operations manager before I joined Peace Corps. I literally went from running a 500,000 square foot warehouse outside of Cleveland to an 8x10 hut in the Amazon. And my business partner, Jeff, he's a finance professional with 14 years of experience on and off of Wall Street. We actually met in business school at Cornell University. So you can imagine that we took a long, careful look at the business side of Peaceful Fruits before we launched it. What we found was quite encouraging, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing in front of you. So over the last 10 years, the market for fair trade goods, like Peaceful Fruits, has gone up 400%. At the same time, there's a robust market for snacks that's worth $124 billion a year in 2014. And the fastest growing segment is specialty foods just like us, at over $2.5 billion already. And that's because increasingly, Americans want snacks that are made from simple or all natural ingredients. That's why our closest competitors, like Stretch Island and VeggieGo's, are doing pretty well. Stretch Island hit $10 million in revenue about 10 years back and immediately got bought out by Kellogg's. VeggieGo's is only 4 or 5 years old, but they already have national distribution and they're a thriving, growing company. And that's the space that we're moving into. We offer a very similar price point at $1 to $1.50, a similar commitment to simple ingredients, so we have that business side. But what sets us apart is that acai and our social mission. From a pure business standpoint, our acai makes us unique. We're the only business on the market that actually uses superfood acai as the main ingredient in our product. It's not just a gimmick. It's not 27th out of 30 ingredients. It's the main ingredient, so you can actually taste this delicious exotic superfood and get the real benefits of it. But then our explicit social mission, that's also a competitive advantage. It allows us to connect with customers on those social values that are more and more driving purchasing decisions. And that's what's resulted in some good traction thus far. We launched our production partnership with Hattie Larlam and Blick Clinic in August of last year, and we've already sold over 17,000 snacks across more than 40 stores. That's Acme and Mustard Seed, Amazon.com, and about to get into Whole Foods, which we're very excited about. And so the sales side is scaling up, and the production side can scale pretty well too. Through our partnership with Hattie Larlam, we can get up to 400,000 units a year annually in production. And our partnerships in the Amazon can scale even past that without causing any environmental issues. So I'd love to talk about what comes after that 400,000 units in terms of new flavors and chocolate-covered acai and all that exciting stuff. But I figured we should probably talk about what it'll take to get there first, right? So let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're looking for $60,000 in investment from Sea Change and also from support from the community for organizations and the people in this room. And that money is what we need to scale up our sales to become financially viable under our own power and also drive our mission at the same time. Specifically and immediately, that's $12,000 to put into bulk purchases of raw materials. That improves our margin by 10% right off the bat and by 1/3 over the next year. That's also investing in our brand. $10,000, it's expensive, but that's what it takes to make sure you're standing out on the shelves, you're standing out online, so that you're really driving the consumer side of sales. It's also the $10,000 it takes to go to the national food trade shows where we can build up that whole side to make contact with Starbucks or Aramark to really drive those big relationships that can cause a real inflection in our sales trajectory. This is the working capital that it takes to invest today to drive sales and drive the mission at the same time. So what does that look like? Well, right now we're on that bottom red line of bootstrap organic growth. We're losing a little money this year. We're on track to break even by the end of next year. But with that investment of $60K, we can jump up onto the blue line. And that's where you see or the green line on this monitor, excuse me. And that's where you can see a real inflection point as we're able to capture larger customers, we're able to decrease margins, and we're able to really increase in-store sales as that branding investment starts to pay off. And at the same time, we're also able to leverage that into some incredible social impact. By the end of this year, that investment will enable us to go from 10 jobs created for folks with disabilities in Akron up to 20, as we are able to add a second shift. By the end of 2017, we'll be pumping over $55,000 worth of wages into the community for folks with disabilities there in Akron. And at the same time, it's $30,000 worth of acai from the people in the Amazon rainforest. But we can't get there without the support of Sea Change, that investment, organizations like those represented in the room, and also people like you. So we hope that you'll be inspired, even just as individuals, to help us out. It's as simple as a like on Facebook or taking a second the next time you go shopping to request us in the store. And definitely, the next time any of you are going to a meeting, please don't bring donuts. Bring Peaceful Fruits. It's a snack made the right way from the right stuff. Thank you.
I mean, I will tell you, my 2-year-old is addicted to the apple, so that is something. And
First one's free. And they are actually up there at the food bar if anyone wants to try them.
And our final presenter tonight is Tessa from Neighbors Apparel.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tessa Reeves, and I'm a 25-year-old entrepreneur who adamantly wants to employ Ohio's refugees. Now, had you asked me a few years ago what it was that I wanted to do, my answer would have been completely different. I was a fashion student studying in New York City, and I had landed the most coveted internship in all of fashion, Vogue magazine. But when I got to Vogue, the most exciting thing that ever could have happened to me happened. I quit. I quit this one thing that I'd worked the past 6 years for and dreamt about since I was a teenager. Of course, there was a lot of thought that went into that, but to give you a glimpse, one Monday morning, just about 2 weeks in, I heard this arguing going on in the hallway, and I realized that it was over this missing $11,000 dress. And because this dress was missing, jobs and lives were being threatened. And in that moment, I realized that if I stayed where I was at in the industry, I would be serving that dress for the rest of my life. I had no idea what it was, but I was convicted that there was something better for me to do. So I quit Vogue, I quit New York City, and I headed back home to Akron. On a whim, I started volunteering with refugees, and it's here that I found what it is I want to do and find myself doing today. I had the opportunity to start a business called Neighbors Apparel, and we exist to create employment for refugee women who have been resettled to Ohio. We do that by utilizing creative talents refugees bring with them to produce bags, accessories, and apparel for the American fashion market. We have 16 million refugees worldwide today. Many of those refugees live in camps like what you see behind me, where they're housed in tents, have no electricity, and no running water. Now, some of these same refugees end up in our state of Ohio. That means we have people coming from Burma and living in cities like Akron and Cleveland. You can imagine simply by the nature of this resettlement how hard it is for a refugee once they get here. And of course, crucial to their well-being is whether or not they're able to obtain a job upon arrival. Unfortunately, the unemployment rate for refugees in their first year here to the United States is a whopping 35%. and that number increases to 41% when we specifically talk about female refugees here in the United States during their first year. Kaser is one of those refugee women who came from Burma and now lives in Akron. When I first met Kaser, she had been in the States for 5 years and still hadn't had a job. Her story is indicative of many refugee women that we have here in Northeast Ohio, where specific barriers to employment include a lack of education, a lack of childcare opportunities, and also limited knowledge of the English language. Refugee women have a desire to work and help support their families, but sometimes they just need an opportunity to come and meet them where they're at. And better yet, if they can find a job that uses a talent that's inherent to their culture and that they already have. This is exactly where Neighbors Apparel steps in to create a solution to refugee unemployment here in Ohio. Since we operate in the fashion for good space, we face competition from hundreds of competitors like your Tom Shoes, your Crochet Kids, and Good Humans. Much of what you see behind me is the kind of stuff we make, and we employ refugee women just like Kaser, who in fact is now on our team. The way we strive to make ourselves different from those other guys is by the fabrics that we use in our products. What I mean is that we use authentic fabrics that are hand woven in the same regions where our refugee employees are from. So by doing this, we're putting a real piece of culture into the hands of each customer, connecting them to that refugee story in a very unique way, and also giving them a pretty cool platform to show what their product is all about. This also puts a piece of home into our refugee employees' hands that they get to work with every day on the job in this new foreign country that they now find themselves. And the fact that the fabric supports a living wage that the weavers over in Southeast Asia make also gives our employees a peace of mind knowing that the business they work for also supports the very communities that they still call their home. We sold our first product in August of 2014, and both our product and mission was well received upon launch. We attended over 30 local pop-up markets, and our product has been found on the shelves of over 20 retailers within our state. This, of course, is the response that we'd hoped for and has really given us the confidence and resources to set our sights on some bigger and better things. We also know that apparel sales are growing much faster online than they are in store, so we need to be spending our energy tapping into this massive e-commerce market than knocking on the doors of some local mom and pop shops. Of course, then, our marketing strategy is rooted in social media. One key strategy of ours is the launch of a nationwide brand ambassador program. This will invite popular Instagrammers and bloggers to become outspoken brand advocates for us in exchange for free product. And this is, our goal of this is to create brand awareness outside of Ohio and get people across the United States talking about what Neighbors Apparel is doing to not only welcome refugees, but create jobs for these refugee neighbors that we now have here in our homes. Another strategy is partnering with those who are bigger and better than us and utilizing the exposure that they can bring. One such partnership we're excited to announce is with Shopteeks.com. Shopteeks is an online retailer that curates products from all over the world. They experience 1 million users on a monthly basis, and they're set to do $20 million in revenue this year. They found us on Facebook and reached out and asked to have our product be sold on their website. And obviously, it's a great partnership for us this year as we look to expand our brand awareness across the states. Needless to say, we are far ahead of idea stage. Revenue today exceeds $70,000, and we've done all of that with an $18,000 seed investment. However, we are at a crucial turning point in the life of our business where we have some great opportunities coming our way, but due to a lack of resources, we're not able to really take full advantage of those things. So that's why tonight we are asking for a $60,000 investment from SeaChange. Behind me, you'll see the breakdown of how we plan to use these dollars. The majority will go towards business development, and that essentially manifests itself as hiring key staff to do the things that I've been talking about tonight to really generate those e-commerce sales, run the brand ambassador program, capitalize on the Shopteeks partnership, things like that. We are also in need of design expertise on our team. So our product is good, but we know it can be better, and we also want to be sure that we're creating products that last and that people want to buy more and more versions of. So bringing on this designer will help us turn shoppers into repeat customers and really allow our brand to have that staying power within the fashion industry. Marketing means investing in some tangible pieces to throw in that out-of-box experience and also some subscription fees so that we can stay in that constant contact with our customers on a daily basis. And inventory, of course, means buying fabric in bulk so that we can decrease our costs and increase the margins on our product. Funding would translate to a drastic increase in sales for us this year. you'll see that without funding, we project bringing in $57,000 in revenue, which is slightly above the 54 that we brought in last year. The reason behind this is because we know we can do that. It's exactly the kind of activities that we would be engaging in that we did last year. However, with funding, we'll be able to kind of push through that threshold and really take advantage of these new sales and marketing opportunities. So with funding, we would expect to bring in $80,000 of revenue. And you'll see that that translates to a 30% increase in the amount of hours worked by our refugee seamstresses, as opposed to the 4% increase you see from the lesser figure without funding. This now takes us back to Caser's story as we talk about what kind of impact these dollars would make. Currently, Caser works anywhere between 3 and 15 hours for us on a weekly basis, and that's due to two things: the fact that we're a startup and the fact that we operate in the retail industry, so we experience a lot of ebbs and flows. Given funding, we would expect to offer Caser a solid part-time 20-hour-a-week job by the end of 2016, and then have that job turn into a full-time seamstress position next year. We would expect the same to be true for all of our current as-needed seamstresses by the year 2018. Now, without funding, we do expect to still grow, but these numbers would essentially be cut in half, and we wouldn't really be able to grow at that rate that we know we can right now, just given the appropriate resources. The success that we have been met with so far is truly due to the women you see behind me, which is our team of refugee seamstresses. I have the privilege to manage these women on a daily basis as chief neighbor, or co-founder and majority owner of Neighbors Apparel. As I mentioned, I come from the fashion industry, and I also studied at Kent State University's Fashion Merchandising School. So I've been subconsciously studying brands for the past 10 years of my life. I've watched others grow, and I see a very clear path how to get from here to here in the fashion industry, and I'm simply taking those steps forward to get there. I do have a business partner. His name is Rodney Matthews, and he's the executive director of the nonprofit that funded our seed money, and also currently serves as our incubation space until we grow too big and need our own spot out on Main Street. He was a former CFO, so he brings a financial strength to the business and handles our bookkeeping and accounting. At Neighbors Apparel, we truly do think we have an opportunity to become the largest small business employer of refugees in our state. And I hope you'll become a neighbor with us in some way, whether it's a like on Facebook, buying a t-shirt, or talking with me later tonight about what it really means to become a neighbor. Thanks.
All right, so we got to hear from all of our wonderful speakers. We're going to take a short break and then come back and announce some money. All right, thank you. So first I wanted to say, again, thank you for coming. And Mike Shafranco, who's with IdeaStream and was supposed to MC tonight, his wife had a baby on Sunday. So he texted us and said, I can't be there. We understand. We're very happy. A little baby girl. So now I want to introduce Bill Lehman with the Business of Good, who's going to talk about the awards this evening. Bill?
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and showing support for Sea Change and the movement that we've tried to get started over the past couple of years in order to help support successful social entrepreneurs like we've heard from tonight. It's really an honor and pleasure to be able to represent Sea Change and the other funders tonight. Secondly, I wanted to thank Towards Employment and Bloom Bakery for hosting us in this beautiful venue. So let's hear it for our friends at Towards Employment. I also want to thank the other funders that are involved in Sea Change, and it's a growing list. We have the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, the Gunn Foundation, the Lennon Charitable Trust, and I also wanted to recognize the Cleveland Foundation because they were a partner in helping to support Bloom Bakery in their launch as well. So let's give it a warm applause for all of our funders. Okay, and so now the moment we've all been waiting for. We're at the end of probably an 9 months, okay. Very good. It's just like we're having a baby tonight. So, very good. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and I've enjoyed seeing your progress over the last 9 months, and to see where you've come to where you are tonight is absolutely amazing, and I'm very humbled by all that you guys have accomplished and will accomplish in the future. So I wanted to announce we actually have decided to award a total of, this is $65,000. And one of the participants that did not present tonight but has shown great promise that we wanted to recognize with a $5,000 award is St. Clair Bike Works. Let's hear for St. Clair Bike Works. Great job. Okay, so everyone's a winner. And the next award recipient of $10,000 is Milestones Autism Resources. Congratulations. Well done. You did a great job. Okay. And I'm going to try not to screw this up like they did with the pageant. So the next person or the next team I wanted to recognize with a $20,000 award is Peaceful Fruits. Okay? Well done, man. Very good. And last but certainly not least, first in fact, I wanted to recognize with a $30,000 award, Neighbors Apparel. Okay? Well done. Great job. So that concludes our big event for tonight. We're going to be launching another cohort in the fall, and I hope that those who may have ideas to create sustainable social enterprises in this room apply. And for those funders, I hope that you'll continue to support Sea Change as we continue to grow and try to develop the social enterprise space in Northeast Ohio and really make a big difference in what we consider to be the future of philanthropy. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening and drive safe. Take care. Hey, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, man. Great job.